Successful Life Coaches. This is Seal Stanford. It's great to be connected to you. Today, we're going to talk about the next piece connected to the secrets of life design. And this is all around ethics. And ethics has to do with once you know something and have that ability to know, how are you going to use what you know? And so using what you know basically has to do, again, with what do you know? And a lot of times, it's like I see this a lot of times people will have a lot of knowledge and they'll have a really high score in this ability to know. But a lot of times they hold that knowledge back. And usually when somebody is withholding what they know and not willing to share, usually it's because they've been made wrong, or maybe someone made them think that they didn't know when they really did know. And so, again, this is another ability, which is being able to take your knowledge and use it. I don't know if you remember last week, but I briefly touched on, this knowledge was discovered by studying great people of the past, starting from Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, Michelangelo, Jesus of Nazareth, Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, and Alexander Graham Bell, to name a few. And they all had the ability to take their knowledge and they created huge visions, which is ethics, that allowed them to be able to achieve what they wanted to achieve. And so they didn't get distracted. They were laser focused on their visions. They had big visions. And if you look at each one of those people I named, all of their discoveries and all of their achievements affect the world in which we live in today. So real quick, if you want the worksheet, type in the word ethics in the comments section. And if you would be so kind as to type in, I'm watching this live, just type in live or replay. That would really be appreciated. So as I'm coaching people, a lot of times, and I'm sure that, you don't even have to be a coach to know this. You can just be a parent or a great friend. I'm wondering how many of you have run into people and you've seen very talented people not using their gifts, not using some of these natural innate talents. A lot of times they don't even realize that it's a talent. And that many times comes from, it's never been validated. The people never knew that it was a gift because it became so natural. So that's one of the aspects of people missing their gifts. And another thing that I run into this daily, is having a lot of potential. And everybody has a lot of potential, but they have a very small vision. And so not knowing how much potential is really sitting there and what you're capable of really affects the size of vision, the size of the big picture you can have. And then lastly, and sadly, this really is very deflating and disappointing when life coaches see this. I know it is for me. When the person is in it for themselves, and the way you can tell that, honestly, really, really hone in on that, is if there's very little care for the others, very little care for the people that they're working with, very little care for their clients. And if there's little care, something else is going on. There's another agenda. So in the ethics column, basically what you want is you want to be able to be true to yourself, because the number one truth in your life that you have is you. And so ethics is being able to take what you know and use it. It's also having an optimum vision, a big picture of what you want, and then being able to use that for the greatest good and the greatest number. So that's what you really, really want, regardless of if you're coaching a client, or if you're helping a best friend, or your team members, or your family members. Those are the 3 wants. Now, the first thing is, how does your dream and your intention connect up with your ethics? Well, first you have to know what is your dream, and then you have to make the intention to use what you know. It's kind of like when I was 39 years old and I took a look at my life, I made the intention that the next year is going to be very different than the first 39 years of my life. So that was my intention, connected to how I was going to use what I know. And at that time, I didn't know how drastically that positive intention would turn out to be. So that's how it connected up to ethics. The second thing that I get asked a lot is, well, how can I be out of ethics? Well, it's real simple. My question would be, have you ever known something and didn't use what you know, and you kept that to yourself? That's out of ethics. You know, maybe you knew something was going on and you didn't speak up. Maybe it was too charged. Maybe you felt like it was none of your business. But once you know something, that's a lot of times, and I'm glad that we're talking about this today, because that's a lot of times the reason people don't want to know. The reason why their ability to know is low. A lot of times they don't want to know, because once you know something, you kind of have to do something about it, or you're sitting there with all this stuff that you know you should be acting on. And then the last point I'd like to make today is, there are times when you withhold what you know. And the 2 biggest things that I have seen that affects that is, sometimes a person, which I said earlier, is they'll be negatively processed for using what they know. Maybe they'll show somebody else up for using what they know, okay? So a lot of times that will cause a person to pull in and not want to go there, and to restrain their knowledge. So ethics is, to recap all this, ethics is, what are you going to do once you know? What are you going to do? How are you going to use your knowledge? And you always want to use your knowledge when you're making the decision on how to use it to do the greatest good for the greatest number. There was let me just take a look here and see if there was anything else. Okay. So the worksheet again is ethics. And the 3 points is around ethics, dream, and intention. And one thing about intentions, very, very important to inspect your intentions always, because your intention directs your attention. Intention directs your attention. And so, you know, we've been talking about this personal zones profile and the life plan. And I would tell you, in 1999, when I went into the company that I own now, and I sat down and I did my personal zones profile, when I saw the results, I just started to cry. I had been very, very honest in my answers. And when I got the results and the lady sat down with me and she went over and explained it and asked me some questions, it was like my life unfolded. It was a clear picture, because again, I'd been honest. It was a clear picture of what I was doing, who I was being, and a picture of my life. And so you got to know where you're at and where you're going if you want to get better, so you can get headed in the right direction. So we looked at my profiles. We looked at where I was. Everything was red except for one column. It was green. And there are 12 columns, guys. So 11 reds and 1 green. And so with that, I was able to start finding out what I didn't know, and then use, as I found out what I didn't know and what I needed to know, I was able to start using that knowledge to get what I wanted and to help everyone else get better. And here I am today. So with that, type in ethics if you want the worksheet, and have a great week. And I look forward to talking about point 3, which is all around your personal power.